go. Hi everybody and welcome to the Mental Toughness and Body Show. My name is Robb Evans and I'm your weight loss coach, health strategist and internationally published author, helping take your life, your business, your body, your health, your fitness, your mindset from where you are to being unstoppable. And I feel very privileged today. I've got a really special guest with me all the way from Brisbane. It's Phil Ghent. Hi Phil.
Hey, how's it going, mate? It's great to be here.
Yeah, good. Thank you for taking some time out of your day today. So Phil is a serial entrepreneur. And Phil, do you want to just tell us a little bit about what it is that your background, a bit about what you're working on right now?
Yes. Well, I started out my entrepreneurial journey a fair few years ago. I was just working in a normal job, and then I got sick of that and decided to get out of that. And I started working a abseiling business, so where we jump off the top of buildings and hang on pieces of string and do different things. And that's has grown and did really well. I ended up selling that and then taking on new and exciting areas of life, because everything is all about change, and nothing ever stays the same. So it's always interesting that you need to be able to reinvent yourself and to do something different. And then I've gone into many different career paths, but currently I'm actually doing business consulting, and also started another aspect since this COVID hit into doing commercial real estate. So it's very interesting that we're getting into talking about what's happened during COVID and how we live. So I've been living here up in Queensland for the last 12 years, so it's pretty good.
Where did you live before that?
A little bit about me.
Where did you live before Queensland?
Well, I was born and bred Melbourneian down there
I didn't know that.
on Mornington Peninsula. Mornington Peninsula.
Okay.
But when I was born down there, there was only this small little shack bush nursing hospital. So not the hub of well-to-do.
Yeah, what it is now.
Living that it is now, yeah. Bit different.
Yeah, and I bet how fast has that 12 years gone by though?
Oh, it's just been crazy. There's so much happened, and if I think back of where I was and what I was doing when I first came back into being up in here in Queensland to what it is now, it's poles apart, totally different.
Yeah, it's really different, isn't it? Now, where you're coming through a little bit glitchy, so I apologise for anyone that's watching this. I hope I'm coming through to you okay, Phil. You're okay now. It just gets a little. It just gets a little bit stuck every now and then, but it's still good. So today, what Phil and I wanted to talk about is a bit about COVID and what we can learn from COVID. We had a phone call probably a couple of weeks ago, and we just got talking about all these different things. And I said, Phil, we should be recording this because it was just really, really interesting. And I guess what's interesting about the two of us. So I'm based in Melbourne. So we've been locked down for effectively 7.5 months, 2 lockdowns. And I've only just been able to open up my studio here this is the 4th day. Last time we were open for 2.5 weeks and we had to shut down again. So hoping that we can get past the 2.5 week mark. And of course, you being up in Brisbane, you've been pretty much back to normal for months now. And,
that's right.
Sunny old Brisbane, I mean, the number of people that have left Victoria to go to other places. The main hotspots I'm hearing are Brisbane, Queensland North anyway, or Perth, going over to Perth. Lots of trades and everything. We're losing a lot of skilled staff from, say, hospitality and that sort of area, because it's just like, we don't know when it's going to open again. And even now that it's open, it's really limited. So,
that's it.
It's really been quite devastating. We've had tens of thousands of people that have left the state. It's really been a bad time. But your observations as an opening statement, I suppose, what would you say that maybe you've learned from COVID?
Well, I think that there's 3 points, I guess, that I would say that I've learned from COVID is that firstly, there's thankfulness and gratitude.
Yeah.
Secondly, there's probably would be opportunity. And then the third one would be habits. So a bit of an interesting
That's a nice
contrast.
mix. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like thankfulness and gratitude. You suddenly, as soon as you get anything taken away from you, from what is normally the way it is, and then suddenly you're just thrown over here to a different position, that you suddenly go, well, oh, I want to be back where I was, or I want it the way it was. So suddenly being thankful for the freedoms and the way that we can have movement and a lot of different aspects. I think COVID has suddenly just thrown us into a real appreciation for areas of life that we didn't really have a lot of gratitude or thankfulness for. So I think that one is probably my first and foremost in light of
So
change.
for you personally, what do you think you recognised? And then I'll tell you the things that I certainly recognised in my life.
Well, the fact that I wasn't able to do any travelling at all, and because I did move quite a lot, I've got my son down there in Melbourne, and we were effectively unable to see him. We're unable to do business the way that we used to do business. And because I used to network a lot, go to a lot of meetings, then that suddenly just stops because you can't go and see people. You can't be in a room with multiple other people. So suddenly everything just needs to shift to a completely different way or a different aspect of how to do life. So you suddenly have to really figure out what is important and vital and what are the key elements in light of how you communicate and what you do to be able to help get you back to being a truly functional person like you were before, like the COVIDs and the situations where you weren't able to do what you wanted to do.
Yeah, I think one of the things for me, yeah, same for you. I mean, if I look at how much travel I did in the last 18 months, going to over to the US, going into states, whether it be Brisbane, Sydney, they're the place I normally travel to for, work stuff.
Yeah.
The amount of networking that you do at those events, how much you learn, how much you immerse yourself, like completely removing yourself from your day-to-day operations and immersing yourself in whatever the topic is or the environment. Really missing that. On the flip side, saving a lot of money in terms of how much less travel. I reckon I worked out I've probably saved about $1,800 to $2,000 in petrol.
That's it.
In 7 months, I filled up the car 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Because we were only able to drive 5 kilometers and the kids were homeschooling and that kind of stuff. So yeah, certainly that. I remember when it first happened and for us, it was the 23rd of March. And I remember in the 10 days leading up to that, I was preparing my clients and I'm thinking, geez, what if everybody just leaves? Because, you always think, what's the worst case scenario? Everybody's just going to leave. How am I going to, because this was before anyone started talking about providing any funding or business support or anything like that. They're just saying that we're shutting your industry. Probably for the first, so then they announced, I was preparing my clients and I said, look, we're going to start streaming. And so I started doing that about a week beforehand. And then when it actually happened, I said, okay, we're just streaming from now on. So it was quite clever in hindsight because I didn't really lose anyone. And so that was powerful. But then when the time actually came, it was a kind of a second wave of panic. So I'm like, okay, I spent about 2 or 3 days just communicating with everybody, trying to, across all the different platforms to make sure that everybody knew what was going on. And then I wanted to make sure that everybody was okay. That people were I knew how important the mental health was, but I was getting people calling me saying, if you take my payment tomorrow, I will have no money, which raises 2 questions. One is, how can you live that close to the breeze?
Yeah,
How can
that's
you
it.
be, how can you be having that little money in your account?
Well, it's more common than actually we'd want to actually put out there, really.
Yeah, yeah, um,
So
yeah. But
for
really,
me,
really just wanting to make sure that I could look after people and be
yeah,
there for them. And those that couldn't afford it, I still let them come anyway because I knew how important it was going to be for their
yeah,
mental,
the mental health. Yeah,
yeah, the mental health side of things. So, and it was probably about a week when I then started to, thought, how am I going to get back into a new normal? And that's
yeah,
when
right.
I created like a 90-day COVID strategy. They said we were going to shut down for 6 weeks. And I'm like, there's no way they're going to shut us down just for 6 weeks. So it's
Seven
going
and
to
a
be
half months
12.
later.
Yeah. So I created that. And then what that did, it created a heap of focus for me to get, to get so much done. Um,
Yeah.
so that was really quite powerful. What was this?
When you focus on something, it's definitely because, as we know from a lot of our different interactions with people that educate, and as soon as we have our focus go somewhere, that's where our attention and energy
That's
flows.
right.
So if you don't have a focus, which is probably why a lot of people end up floundering,
Yeah.
because they end up not having a fixed or focused attitude. That's why I say number 3 for me is habits.
Mm.
Really falls onto the back of that.
Yeah, it's I think we were talking about this the other day. COVID has seemed to any problems that people have in life, it's just magnified them
Yeah, yeah, totally.
because there's certain like COVID's like tightened the vice a lot on people, like financially, mentally, and it really has just magnified the fact that people aren't really focused. They're not really driven. They don't really know what it is that they want to achieve out of their life, and certainly with their health and fitness. I mean, it was only, I can remember seeing on Facebook, we're like 2-3 weeks in and there was no
Yeah.
idea as to how long we were going to be locked down for. And
Yeah.
people were already like throwing around the phrase, I'm going to be fatter, not fitter at the end of this. It's
Yeah,
like, hey,
that's it.
you're already saying that and we're only like a few weeks into it. It's like you give
Yeah, that's
up.
it.
When instead you could say, I'm going to be fitter rather than fatter because now I've got more time to be focusing on me.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's like if it's all about the mindset that you have. And like for me, that's why number 2's opportunity, because I took it as an opportunity to say, okay, well, my business just instantly just was like slowed down because people were in instant, I need to preserve whatever funds I do have for my business, because I don't know how long anything's going to be going for.
Yeah.
So they're not prepared to suddenly get a consultant then for 6 months and commit themselves there when suddenly they have got this very big unknown hanging in the back of their minds going, well, should I do, should I not? But taking those opportunities where things have gone down for me, where I've just upskilled myself. And then I was like, I want to know about real estate and get into commercial properties. So then I've just gone about over this time and got my commercial agent's license for real estate. So that's something that I invested in, took a course, went through and going through all the licenses of that. So it's like seeing that, okay, I'm going to have a little bit more time on my hand. So where I can have that time, I can use that to upskill myself and to make something actually that's going to work for me later on. So I think we shared before about how people, a lot of times that are very emotionally driven, that's when they just end up floundering, going, oh, what's going on? But the people that seem to be a bit more left brain and logical, that's when they go, okay, I'm going to be focused. I need to make my plan. So that's where it's a real difficulty for sometimes those people that are quite emotional. They've got to really drive themselves to fix their mind on one particular aspect of their life and then really try to develop that. So I think that's a really key point, that like you say, focusing on a development point to really help push through. Like not going with that whole I'm going to be fatter situation like you were saying. It's just like, well, that's a bullet to the head. Yeah.
I think I've seen that, like for me personally, there's been a whole range of opportunity that has come out of COVID, which I've been very grateful for. I've been very grateful for many things that have happened during this time, but the opportunities that have come up that, I use this scenario of like coaching somebody, and if I like pre-COVID, and I had a discussion with somebody that said, look, I know you just live around the corner and you've got some equipment at home and stuff, and you want me to coach you through a session. I'll tell you what, I'll stay in my studio. You just hook your phone up somewhere. I'll be at my laptop and I'll talk you through the session. How does that sound? And people are like, oh, what are you, crazy? Why would I want to do that? Because people aren't used to using the technology that way and having an experience like that. Most people are like, well, I've got to come in and I've got to feel the metal in my hands and I've got to sweat in your company and all that kind of stuff. But now I've got people doing it all the time. You know, people are working out in their kitchens and doing that kind of stuff. I'm coaching people in their bedrooms, and you know, that's the quiet room of the house and all that kind of stuff. So it's it's really opened up some wonderful opportunities.
But the other thing too is that they just suddenly start to realize that their world isn't as closed off as they originally thought it was, and that some things are actually better because it saves them time, saves them resources, and a lot of different aspects come to bear when they start to actually apply some of these great things. So I think that developing the good habits, I think that's another really good one for this, where those people that start to do these things, I think the focused habitual planning of a desired result or a goal definitely helps people to another level when it comes to going through the whole of this COVID stuff. Because if they don't have that habit forming situation or ritual, then they will end up having a lot of issues, I think, because mentally they'll just end up not being able to, they'll unravel sort of thing. And I've seen that because I've seen my son, because I was doing daily calls with him through the midst of lockdown. And sometimes because it does get mentally draining. So if you've got some good established habits, then that can actually really drive past those times of real difficulty.
The key is about forming those really good habits though, isn't it? Because I think I've fallen into a whole range of unhealthy habits. Like binge watching TV and like binging on food and having, you know, like the office in your house, like where mine is right now, the kitchen's just there. Oh, look, I'll just go and get some food. Now, then it comes down to, well, what food are you going to bring into the house? And it becomes more unhealthy. And before you know it, your focus is just gone somewhere else. And the habits that you formed are actually really unhealthy. Yes.
Well, it's interesting because it's only, I did in my book that I've put together, and I cover a section on that, and it's interesting because the number 1440 is a great number, and you go, well, what's 1440? And it's like, that's the minutes in a day. So I look at it as what 1%. What's 1% of that? It's 14.4. So if you say 15, so 15 minutes is 1% of your life. And if you can dedicate 15 minutes, which is 1% of your life each day, that over a year's time, just doing something for 15 minutes a day, you can end up having like 2.5 weeks of doing that particular item. And it's amazing the difference, because people don't realize the difference like 1% change in their life will make.
Yeah.
If you're at an airport and you have dual runways and they're both going down, except when the planes both take off together, if one changes or alters its course by 1 degree, and they're, say, going 100 kilometers an hour, after 1 hour, they're already 1.75 kilometers apart from each other, just from that 1 degree. And if it's an hour later or a day later, it's 41 kilometers. So it just shows you but that's what people don't understand. If they just take that 15 minutes, and that's why I think what you do is so tremendous, because it's like you've got like these 15, 30 hour-long sessions that you are helping people establish and build this habit. So if they actually realize that that's actually moving them over 1 degree, that in 3 months' time, they're going to be a completely different person.
Yeah,
they're not going to be the same person at all.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I love about the transformation process of this, because you not only transform. I love the mindset transformation. Once that comes, the physical and the health transformation will come. Tell me, what do you think it is that makes people not focus on making the change and wanting to become, more successful in, many or any areas of their life?
Well, I think that it's a lot of times it's that they just believe the story that they're telling themselves or that they've been told. Like I grew up, my dad was very, very derogatory towards me. He was a good father. He looked after me, gave me everything I needed and everything like that.
Yeah.
But with words, it was not there. Because I basically had a situation where I couldn't read or write. So he thought I was a very bright child, but then as soon as I went to school, he suddenly realized that I was at the bottom of everything and a big failure because I couldn't read or write. So he just kept on saying that I'd never achieve anything and I'd never be anything. And that was the story that I kept on being told.
Yeah.
So I ended up believing that. And then I got to a point in my life where a few things happened, and I got to the point where I just started to tell myself that no, I refuse to have that story anymore, and that I was going to be able to do whatever I chose to. And that's really fueled me to be able to make drastic changes in my life, from like going from one completely different career path to another. And I think you've also done that, coming from an accounting background to going to physical health. It's like it's poles apart. So but I think the first thing is that people need to get out of the story that they've first been telling themselves, and that they can actually achieve the new way of life they really would desire to become. And I think that's the big key, because until you're able to stop convincing yourself that you're not something of worth, then you're going to be struggling a lot of times.
It's like I love studying successful people, like all from highly successful, the celebrities to business people to, the most successful people in their, in their chosen field. And it's really quite compelling that, it really is about that 1% that are highly, highly successful. And yet so many others just fail completely on, if it's health and wellness, or if it's financially or career or just joy, happiness, finding that, that true connection that they want. as humans, we seem really we're quite interesting creatures, that we want all these things, but we aren't prepared to do what's required to achieve those outcomes. And I think, like for myself, the stories that I told myself for probably 2 decades was that, that I was ugly, I was not worthy, I was dumb, I had no friends, I would never find a partner that would like me, I was too short, I was, all of these things.
There's a myriad of things.
Yeah, all these things, because that's what I had when I was a kid. When I was bullied as a kid, and I lived with that story because we're so impressionable at that age, and I didn't think that I could change it. I thought that in some ways, like, that's what I lived, that was going to be my way. But then in other ways, I said to myself when I was about 13, life has to have something bigger for me and better for me. I didn't know what it was, but I just knew that it wasn't going to be for me where I was. I was determined to change it, but I lived the story of not being worthy of so many things for about 20 years.
Yeah. Well, I cover this a bit in the book that I wrote too, in light of the fact that there's so many times that even in those stories, it's something that we are comfortable with. Because even though you sit there and you think, well, how can you be comfortable in something that's just so against what you actually want to be? But the thing is because it becomes what we've told ourselves, it becomes, we don't want to seek change, because a lot of times we get convinced of the story. Like, you hear people talk about change and they say, oh, change is, no, you don't want change. And it's like, well, yes, you do. You always want change, but people get confronted with the words of society that's saying change is bad, change is not good, you don't want it, you don't want change, it's good to have it just the way it is. But the thing is, that's totally against all nature, because there is nothing on this planet that doesn't change.
Yeah, every day.
Just even as on our physical body, it changes moment by moment, with cells regenerating and everything. So we're not the same person that we were a month ago, because it's all just different. We may look the same, but it's still different. Yeah. So change is inevitable, but we've bought into this lie that change is something that's bad, when it should be something that we embrace and go, yes, change is where we need to. Because a lot of times that's where that whole scenario of comfort zones falls in, and people just sit in a comfort zone. And I've found that if you look at the people that are really successful, a lot of times you'll find the ones that have hit the pinnacle of success are ones that were in absolute dire straits.
Yeah.
Because they felt uncomfortable enough in that situation that they chose that they would never again be a part of that story.
Yeah.
And then they moved the dial.
Yeah.
But what happens is the people that are in this middle zone, where they just buy the lie, but, oh yeah, I'm a little bit uncomfortable, but what's a couple of extra pounds or something like that? I still live well, and I can still walk around and do whatever. So they just get into this thing where they're comfortable. And the problem is that's what is the real kicker that stops people from success, is because they really buy into that. Okay, this cell that I'm sitting in, it's comfortable. But the biggest prisons aren't the ones that hold bad people. It's the ones in here.
Yeah. It's almost like we need to follow people around and just cause them pain so they'll change, right?
Yeah, well, that's it. And if you're prepared to do that for yourself, then that's when you really start doing some great things. That's why I like the idea of 15-minute habits,
Mm-hmm.
Because if you start incrementally changing your life by 1 degree at a time, 15 minutes, well, what's it take? 66 days to develop a habit? But it's only really the first part of the habit, like maybe the first 2 to 3 weeks, that is really the difficult part. Because as you start getting down towards the 66 days, it's already habit by then. It's just kicking along. So it's just the cruising part of that. It's just the hill that really is the problem. And that's where people have to have that willpower to drive over the hump of the first initial. It's like I remember you telling me what the one big thing that really stops people from going to the gym is the day after they have their pain.
Yeah, or the second day is worse. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm not going to go back for that. I'll stop. It's like, no, that's the time to keep going.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's I remember the story that I was telling you about before. What made me change my story was the day somebody threatened to kill me.
Oh, really? There you go.
And that caused me enough pain to say, I'm not going to feel immobilized again.
Yeah, right.
I'm not standing up for myself.
Yeah.
And if that hadn't have happened, I wouldn't have changed career path. We wouldn't be talking now. I wouldn't have done all the things that I've done. I wouldn't have written the book. I wouldn't have done any of that.
Yeah. And just look at how the world would be a worse off place for it.
Well, yeah, and me too. I just feel very incomplete. I'd be following a career path that was just really unfulfilling, financially rewarding, but just unfulfilling. Yeah. So I don't know. It was that moment that just caused me enough pain in that moment to say, I'm changing now.
Yeah.
Right now. And
that's it, right now. It's not optional here. It's like, okay, from this point forward.
Yeah. People, I'm never going to feel like that again.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things that people miss when they make key decisions like that, is that at that point, you need to take some sort of action straight away, instantly. Whereas sometimes people just, I'll put it off, I'll wait.
Yeah.
But that's not the time to be waiting. It's the time to be saying, no, that's it. The end is there. That was it. The line has been drawn.
So let me ask you a question. I'm just conscious of your time. Thank you for being so generous with your time today, Phil. A question. Tell me, you're at the crossroads, right? And you've got a choice where, knowing what you know about COVID, you could go that way, or at the start of the year, you would have had a plan for what 2020 was going to look like for you without COVID, because you didn't know about it. And that's this road here, or the COVID road is going this way. Which path would you choose?
Well, COVID 100% of the time.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the wonderful thing about COVID is that it made people feel uncomfortable and realize that their comfort was not actually comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's, sometimes you need an event to shake people out of their comfort. Like you think of that, a person that was living their life happily, doing whatever, and then suddenly their plane crashes and they survive. Their life is always changed because suddenly they have now an option. It's like, am I going to live the same? I almost lost my life. So I'm going to change. So I think that COVID, everybody whinges and complains about it, but I think it just has been a great way to expose people's comfort and to show them that they need to change aspects of their life. And many people have, which is great, but I think there's still a few that have just gone back into that old way of, I just want it to be the way it was.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, you don't.
If you stood back and reflected and, you were someone else looking in, you'd say, actually, that wasn't really that great.
No, it was pretty crap. I
You had a
don't
crappy
want that one.
relationship, you had a crappy job, you'd hated, and all
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree with you. I would absolutely go down the COVID path again. Now, obviously, that sounds a bit heartless in terms of the tragic loss of life around the world, but I'm, putting that to one side and saying like my experience through it, absolutely, because like the way that I've been able to change the business, create new business opportunities, meet new people, be driven to connect more deeply with clients. And well, we haven't even talked about the family side of things, but me being able to have like my desk right here, I've got a like a corner desk, but it goes down here. My girls are with me homeschooling pretty much every day, and that can be really frustrating and distracting sometimes, but also
rewarding.
Also really beautiful, because it meant that I connected more deeply with them, and they're both like 13 and 15, and teenagers don't necessarily want to connect with their parents. We had a lot of fun. I got to understand more about their schooling. I think, as a dad, I think that was really quite powerful, as well as obviously all the business stuff. But also, when they first announced the lockdown, and it sounds a bit sick, but I got excited about it, because I thought, right, obviously I'm recording this podcast. I do a Robb Evans 365 one as well. And I'm always talking about, pushing into the pain, like stepping into the gym. I did a workout today. I know going in, man, this is really going to hurt because I want to grow. And that's the same emotionally as well. And I thought, okay, this gives us a great opportunity to really just hit back at COVID and prove to us, like yourself, of what you're capable of, what your mindset is capable of, to be able to come through it. Because I thought, I want my kids to see that I was able to go through this. I'm running my business. This, ironically, will be my best year ever, as far as financial performance goes. And be able to thrive in an environment where it's been such hardship. And I think, like, yesterday was, Remembrance Day. And I think, man, the war went on 4 or 5 years. We don't know what hard is. I mean, we were senseless death and war and everything. And like, imagine if this went on for another 4 years, which it could. We don't know. We've had some good news about the vaccine and stuff.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. Would absolutely go through it again, because I think we become better versions of ourselves for pushing into the pain. And I tell you one final thing that I believe that is because if I go back to probably the single biggest event that happened to me, which was the bullying in my life, I knew that because I stepped into it, that where I got onto the other side of it, so accepting that pain and saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do, that I'm not just going to accept it. And I think this was the same, saying, okay, so many people have left my industry. They're really screwing our industry up, but this is what I can do.
Well, that's it. It's always being able to look at a different situation or look at your situation and try to. I was sharing with one of my clients the other day. We were sitting across the table having a coffee, and there was a little Q&R code stuck on the table, and his cup was right in front of it. And I said, well, it's all about perspective. If we sat here now and talked about what we see in your life, and your life being what we see literally at this table, his perspective was looking down from this way, down at the cup, and the Q&R code's here behind his cup.
Yeah, so
as he looked, he couldn't see it. And I said, you're sitting there looking at this and you're saying this is your truth. But I'm sitting here from over here looking down, seeing this Q&R code here, saying, well, there's this treasure just here waiting for you behind your cup.
Yeah.
But you can't see it. And he said, no, but I can't see that because this is my truth. And I said, well, if you actually stood up and just moved at all a little bit, it would change your perspective on exactly the same situation. And then you'd say, oh, actually, And it's all about those filters that we have in our minds, because if we can change those filters by moving the situation or where we're looking at it from, it will just totally change our life.
Yeah, absolutely. Final question for you, Phil. So are you, with COVID and everything that you know about it, are you now living life differently? Are you doing anything different, radically different to what you were doing before?
No, I'm not doing things too differently, except there is definitely a lot more online activity. My life has definitely become more, in light of what we do interacting wise via online, which is good, because
if only you and I had created Zoom, hey?
Yeah, there you go. It would have been a good one. But that's the thing. But in saying that, it's opened it up, because now it's stretched it to the world. So it's become, you're not only able to just connect on a daily basis with the people in your city or in your town, but actually worldwide, people are prepared to communicate to you. So the way I do life, there are a couple of things that happen in light of my traveling. And for me, I was always a big proponent of traveling around my own country before I ever went overseas.
Yes.
So I always traveled around Australia a lot before I went away. So I think it's good and healthy that more Australians are actually having to do that. So I think it's going to be good too, to be able to get a bit more looking around where in our own backyard, rather than trying to seek things further abroad. So that's about the only difference for me.
The one thing that I've certainly noticed is that people are really, really keen to support local businesses here. I've got people like telling me that, oh yeah, look, I want to support local business, whether it's, I don't know, a female client that she buys bath bombs from a lady that just like a couple of suburbs away makes those. And you know, we've had so many businesses that are just closed now. There's so many empty shop fronts and factories and stuff around here that are closed. It's like, it's heartbreaking. Like, so speaking of travel, my travel agent, they've been in the main street of our township for over 20 years, closed.
Wow.
Closed. They're just doing it from home now.
Yeah, right.
I mean, they'll be starting to get busy now, I suppose. But yeah, I think for me, probably the biggest thing is probably the relationship capital, like realizing just like I've really valued being able to connect with clients more deeply. And I'm like, through COVID, I launched a different coaching program and coaching people through that. And it's really great to see how people can change with the coaching, you know, and they've gone through a lifetime of being dissatisfied with, you know, health, body image, all that kind of stuff. And now they're getting like such great transformations. And it's like, it's great to be able to connect more deeply with people. Because, you know, at the end of the day, anything, like, I got all these magnificent books on my bookshelf behind me, just like you have behind yours. We can't take any of that with us, even though I could say to the kids, stick them in the coffin. You know, you can't take it, you can't take it with you. And it comes down to, I think, that like the experiences that we live and, you know, those relationships and connections that we build. And that's probably one of the things that has stood out for me.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a vital one to have those experiences, because really, when you think back, that's what triggers in your mind. It's not anything else. It's like,
I've got this great car in the garage. No, it's like, I remember that experience of buying the car, or, you know, whatever that is. Yeah.
Because that's the thing, because it's like we talked about different aspects that were life-changing. It's like, it's the same as me when I was a young lad working up in the Kimberleys, and it was a beautiful sunny day and crisp morning, and I was up in a helicopter. We were flying along doing a fence line, and then next thing you know, helicopter started spinning around in circles, and then I was just, what's going on? And then I looked down at the tachometer, and it just went, and went from being in the green, that means it keeps in the air, down into the red, which means it's going to fall out of the sky.
Oh,
And
fabulous.
suddenly and then we're about 100 meters off the ground, and the pilot says, hang on. It's like, then all that runs through my mind is Rambo films and things like this, where these helicopters spin around and blow up in mountains and things. And I'm just thinking this, and then he just says, hang on. And I'm like, oh. And then boom, suddenly hit the ground. Just sitting there wondering if this thing is going to explode, because I can't run out, because the blades are bouncing up and down, and can't run out because those are going. So just sitting there, and I was just waiting for moments, and for probably about 3 minutes, just waiting, wondering if I was going to live or die, and just sitting there. Couldn't do anything. But things like that, they change the way that you think. It's like, well, why should I accept anything about where I am? It's like, if I want to change, I'm going to change. I think people are just limit themselves so much that they need to say, well, if I'm not happy with this experience, I want to have another one. So I'm going to go for it, do it.
Yeah.
What happens if you miss out? Well, you'll have another experience, which will be good for you anyway.
And do it now. Don't wait years. Just do it now.
100%. Because the thing is when you do it, well, you listen to any successful person, they say it doesn't matter, because the whole enjoyable part was the doing and the falling and the picking yourself up and getting it going. And that's when you meet amazing people, and everything just starts to unfold. So it's a tremendous experience.
Just like my other experience, the greatest areas of my life where I've grown, like those experiences where I've grown, have come out of a lot of pain.
That's it.
So if there was no pain, I wouldn't grow. So
I had this guy once. He was one of my mentors when I was over in the States, and I was studying over there for a while. He took us out, and we went up into Colorado River, and we went up into Aspen, right at the top of the mountains, huge. And it was just after winter, so the spring's coming. So the water, heaps of it. It's just huge white water. And then we rocked up and turned up to this river, and there's this raft with all of this kit on. We sat there, we went absolutely mad hatters in this whitewater rafting, paddling like you wouldn't believe. And at the end of the day, he just goes, okay, what is the greatest thing that you've got out of today? And he goes, who had fun? And you go, and I thought about it, and I thought, I had heaps of fun. It was just awesome, off the charts. And he goes, how much work was it? I was just like, I feel like dying, because I did so much work. And then he just says, well, look, just remember this. It even takes work to have fun. So why not just put in the work? Yeah. So it just doesn't matter if it's going to be work to be successful or work to have fun. It all takes work. So just get in and do it. Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Well, Phil, I want to thank you for today. It's been great having a conversation with you. I've just looked down at the clock and I just realized how quickly the time goes by when you're just having a conversation. So thanks so much for giving up your time today. It's been great to chat with you. We'll have to do it again. Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot. And continue to change lives, mate. Yeah, thanks, Phil. Talk soon. Doing great.